With Suicide Prevention Week coming up, we speak to Larry Callery, who's a Senior Learning and Education Advisor for the NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde. Larry has many years' experience training, assist courses in Safe Talk and many more, training people how to deal with the issue of suicide. Drumchapel. And we'll talk about this subject, about Suicide Prevention Week, that's what it's called, isn't it?
Aye.
So, could you just give me a wee bit of what Suicide Prevention Week's all about?
It's something that happens every single year, and it's an international thing. It's not just in Scotland or Britain, it's right across the world, where people who have been touched by suicide remember the people who might have died by suicide or people who have been affected by it. And that all culminates in the 10th of September, which is Suicide Prevention Day. So that's something that happens every single year.
Okay, and that's right across the planet, and that's just a world international recognised day then. Can you tell us about some of the stuff that maybe happens in Suicide Prevention Week?
Well, in Glasgow we can maybe give a wee bit of information about that, because in Monday in the East End they've got an event happening there at East Bank, and then over here in the northwest in Gartnavel we've got the Celebration of Life, which invites people to come along who have been touched by suicide, and we do a wee kind of candlelight thing. We planted a tree there 13 years ago. This is the 13th year we're going to be doing it, and that's going to be amazing. We've got a video done by the Partick Thistle manager, and also we've got other people coming along to talk, and we just have a chat with people and see how they're feeling, and just be there to support them.
I think that's really nice. So I take it as people who are bereaved to suicide, yes?
Sometimes it's people who have been bereaved, or maybe even people who have maybe somebody in their family's attempted suicide even,
right, okay.
or maybe even have had thoughts themselves.
Aye.
And they come along and have a chat with us, and we talk to them about what supports are there, and even being there and talking to them for a while is sometimes enough. So
see if somebody does come to that kind of event, what kind of, in your experience, what kind of outcomes or what have they been like after it or even during it, as we speak to somebody?
I think it depends, because for a lot of people they go there and having the chance to talk to others who have been affected like them, you know, can help a lot. But also being able to talk to some people who are maybe trained in suicide prevention or maybe suicide bereavement can help them to get some of the stuff that's maybe been playing on their mind, just to have somebody to talk to, basically. So, and they walk away always feeling better, because they might light that candle for the person they were thinking about or for themselves. And there's a wee thing that we do where they write a wee message and put it on the tree that we planted. So overall it's usually a really good
So what's the date
event.
of that,
It's the 10th of September,
10th of September.
and it's 12:30 to
What day is
12:30.
that?
It's on Tuesday. Tuesday, isn't
Tuesday
it?
coming?
Tuesday coming. Yeah,
At Gartnavel?
at Gartnavel Royal,
Okay.
Campbell House.
Ah, sounds good, man. I might come along to that. See the topic around suicide, Larry. So Drumchapel has been an area seriously affected by suicide, right? The mental health of the population is low in Drumchapel, and that has a ripple effect into the stats around suicide. See if there's somebody in my life or I'm worried about who might be thinking about suicide, how do I go about talking to them about it?
I think the important thing is if you think that the person might be thinking about suicide, is to talk to them, honestly. It's like, sometimes the way I look at it is, if you're thinking about suicide but you don't know how to talk to somebody about it, and you try and reach out to them and you're not sure of what they're going to say, sometimes that kind of stigma that's out there about suicide can feed into that, and you might not be able to talk to them. So for us, we need to be able to look out for the sort of things, but also to give them the chance to talk. Because a lot of the time, see what's going on in here, see if it stays in there, it's not going to do any good. See, by talking about it, it can help to get it out there. You can talk about how you're feeling rather than it rattling about in your head.
What if I did ask somebody but they took offence to me asking? Has that ever happened to you?
It has happened to me. It happened to me with a very good friend of mine who got really angry with me, said he would never talk to me again. He says, because you're into all that suicide stuff, that's why you asked it. But he was going through a really hard time in his life, and that's what I thought might have been the case. A couple of weeks later, he gave me a phone and he came back and he said to me, I'm really sorry that the way I've reacted because I know you ask because you care. And I think that's what people need to know, is that you care. Because for a lot of the time when people are thinking about suicide, they don't think anybody cares. And if you give them that chance to talk, then that can make the difference.
Aye, that's amazing, isn't it?
It is.
So just even if you're running the risk of offending somebody, if you think it, just ask.
Aye, absolutely. Because sometimes if you think about suicide or thoughts of suicide like this, if you're going to make a big important decision in your life, it might be, I don't know, maybe you're going to get married or start a family. What do you do? What do you do?
Don't know.
You talk to people, don't you?
Of course, you share the news, you're
Right.
excited.
You ask about them, you decide, right, what should I do this, should I not do this? If you're ever going to make a big decision in your life, this is probably one of the biggest. And people need to talk about it. Because it might make sense in your head, but when you start to talk about it, then sometimes by talking about it can start to lessen what that actually means.
Take the power away from it.
Take the power away from it. But they need people to be able to sit down and say, right, let's talk about it.
So see on that, Larry, then, so say I do sit down with somebody who I've got concerns about and I ask them and they say they are thinking about it, what do I do? Because I'd probably be lost if they says that. I'd probably be like, right, okay, what do I do now?
Right, okay. I think first thing to think about is to make sure that you validate how they're feeling.
What do you mean by that?
So if somebody says to you, I'm finding things really difficult, things are really hard just now and I'm thinking about suicide, it's about saying, so things are really hard, that must be difficult, going to tell me more about that?
Right, okay.
Give me some more information, because I really want to know. Because people need to get what's going on in their lives out there, because it's caused them a lot of pain. And to be able to talk about it can help to, as you say, take the power out of it and take that pain away.
I guess the worst reaction would be to dismiss it, eh?
Absolutely, because if you think about they've tried to tell, maybe you're not the first person they've tried to tell, they've been rejected, but you then say, look, I want to talk about this. It gives them the chance to say, yep, this is what's happening, this is what I'm dealing with just now, this is how it's hurting me, and then you can talk to them, and then look at, right, well, what else can we do to help you? What other supports are out there? And there's a lot. Every time we do now the assist course, we ask people to say, right, who's out there, who's there to support you, and before you know it, the whole room's standing up. But people who are having thoughts of suicide think nobody's there. And again, because of the stigma, people find it hard to talk about it. Find it hard to talk about suicide. But by these people having that courage to say, look, are you thinking about suicide? Let's talk about it. That can make a difference to that person.
See, just as you're talking, I notice you're using the word suicide a lot. Is that what's kind of, what do you call it? Is that what you expect people to do? Use the word suicide rather than using any other kind of terminology?
I think so, because if you think about your having thoughts, if you were having thoughts of suicide, that's what you want to talk about. You don't want to talk about harming yourself or whatever else, because that can mean something totally different. You want to talk about suicide, but maybe you don't know how to use that word, because sometimes we talk about it as the S word, because years ago we used to talk about the big C and all that sort of stuff. We would never use the word cancer.
That's right,
but nowadays we're not scared of the word cancer, because we know that there's treatment out there. We know that people can survive cancer, but we're not there with suicide yet. We need to try and break down that stigma and that taboo.
It's scary because it's the biggest killer of men under the age of 50 in the UK, that right, Larry? And I think for it to be so stigmatised, it's so sad, because it's literally taking men out of our communities and out of their lives, their families, and it's having such an adverse effect on children and partners and the whole community. Cause is it right, like, something like each suicide, 130 people are directly affected by it, roughly?
135.
Is that?
But they now think that might be more. And they think it might be a lot more because of the social media.
Right, okay.
Because if you think the amount of people that go on social media nowadays, they can be affected by suicide, even if they don't know the person. They might have maybe seen them on TikTok or something like that, and they don't even know them, but that can be a big factor.
I've actually seen that. I've actually seen somebody, remember a girl who done the Love Island, and she took her life. The ripple effects of that were huge, especially in this community, because I've seen people who really struggled with that. See, we're talking about bereavement earlier. There's a new training programme out there, relatively new, called Wave After Wave. Can you just tell us a wee bit about that?
Yeah, that's a training course that we now deliver in Glasgow City, which is going to be rolled out right across Scotland over the next wee while, which helps people to realise that it's okay to talk to people who are bereaved by suicide. They want us to talk about it. There's a couple of things that for the training that always stick with me, and one of them was that one of the people with lived experience, that's who put the training together, said that she would be walking along the road and people would cross over rather than talk to her because they knew that she'd lost her person to suicide. There's a wee woman that talks in the video as well who lost her son something like 15 years ago, and she's still feeling the effects of that, you know. And
socially?
And in that training we get people to see that we can respond compassionately to people who have been bereaved, and not be scared to talk about suicide when they're talking to them, because there's a lot, as again research shows us, is that people who've been bereaved can sometimes have thoughts themselves and might even attempt suicide or even die by suicide. So what we're aiming to do with that training is to get workers out there to be able to kind of give that better wraparound service for people who have been bereaved.
Of course. Is there any, so I think I read somewhere about a new strategy to deal with suicide and stuff like that?
For the government?
It's a government strategy thing.
Creating Hope Together it's called.
Right, okay.
And it's got 4 outcomes within it, and a couple of them are really important for me anyway, but I think are really important. One of them is around bereavement, which we just spoke about, but the other one is around about talking to people who have lived experience,
right,
and making sure they're at the core of this strategy, so that when they're moving forward, they're talking to people who have been lived, who have lived experience, or even who have living experience, because they'll get that as well. And that can include families, carers, and those working with people who are, I think we're starting to see a shift in lived experience, the value of lived experience, Larry, aren't we? And how much value and how much insight we can get. Because I think, again, I've been a big believer, you can read about stuff all you want, but seem to experience it, you'll never actually get it. That includes poverty, it includes domestic violence, it includes a whole range of things. And the same goes for suicide, and also finding solutions to help tackle the suicide crisis the country's facing. See, just before we go up the road there, I'll show you more of Drumchapel. See if there's somebody out there who's maybe watching this and thinking they're in the thought of maybe taking their own life, completing suicide. What would you say to them? I would say, please go and talk to somebody, please. If it's your friend, if it's a family member, if it's your GP, if there's any of the phone numbers that we'll put at the end of this wee video, Samaritans or Breathing Space, talk to somebody. People do care. Sometimes you might think they don't, but they do. And if you go and talk about it, it might not seem as bad. And even if it is, you can still talk to somebody and get the support and the help you need. Aye.
I think even us doing this video shows people care.
Aye, absolutely. Aye.
Listen, let's go and I'll show you the wee cafe van up the corner lights. A new one, it's a belter there, kind of roll sausages, mate.
Right,
let's go check that out.
Alright, no bother.
That's really interesting, Larry, all that stuff, man. It's good to know how we talk about suicide.